The inspection. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of the VSS Indomitable, watching the stars drift by. The massive human warship hummed with power beneath her feet, a testament to humanity's relentless drive to survive in a universe they had long believed to be empty and hostile. For 15 years, the Indomitable had been her home, Earth's premier battleship designed to withstand anything the cosmos might throw at them. "Commander, the Galactic Alliance delegation has arrived," announced Lieutenant Commander Jackson, appearing at her side. "They're requesting permission to dock." Reyes nodded, straightening her uniform. "Right on schedule. Inform the crew to prepare for inspection." The Alliance vessel approaching them looked nothing like human ships. Where the Indomitable was a fortress of angular metal and reinforced plating, the alien ship resembled a luminous sea creature, with curves that shouldn't be possible for a spacecraft and materials that shifted colors in the starlight. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jackson murmured. "Yes, but I wouldn't want to take it into battle," Reyes replied, unable to suppress her professional assessment. After centuries of isolation, humanity had finally discovered they weren't alone in the universe. The Galactic Alliance, a coalition of 32 spacefaring species, had extended an invitation for Earth to join their interstellar community. Today's inspection was supposed to be a formality, a final step before Earth's acceptance into the Alliance. The alien delegation consisted of 5 representatives, led by High Admiral Zoltar, a tall being with iridescent scales and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. Behind him followed representatives from the Novan Collective, the Meridian Confederacy, the Altarian Republic, and the Sylphid Commonwealth, all founding members of the Alliance. "Commander Reyes," Zoltar said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into perfect English, "we are honored to tour your vessel." "The honor is ours, High Admiral," Reyes replied, offering the Alliance greeting gesture they had been taught. "Shall we begin?" The tour started well. The Alliance representatives seemed impressed by the Indomitable's size and the crew's discipline. They asked polite questions about human culture and history, and Reyes began to relax. Perhaps this would be the simple formality everyone expected. Then they reached the Weapons Control Center. "These are your primary defense systems," Admiral Zoltar asked, mandibles clicking as he examined the rows of targeting computers. "Yes," Reyes confirmed. "Our point defense grid can intercept 99.6% of incoming projectiles, even under electronic warfare conditions." "And how many independent targeting systems do you have?" asked the Altarian representative, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. 18 networks, each capable of operating autonomously if others are compromised, Reyes explained with pride. The aliens exchanged glances, their body language shifting subtly. Something had changed in the atmosphere, though Reyes couldn't quite identify what. In the missile bay, Admiral Zoltar stared at the kinetic bombardment systems for a long time. "These weapons could devastate an entire planetary surface," he said quietly. "They're designed for extreme scenarios only," Reyes assured him. "We've never had to deploy them." The tension grew as they toured the antimatter storage facility and the backup power systems. By the time they reached the engine room, Admiral Zoltar's professional demeanor had noticeably cooled. "Your vessel has 7 separate power generators," he observed. "Why would you need so many?" Chief Engineer Patel stepped forward to answer. "Redundancy, sir. If 6 fail, we can still maintain combat operations." "Combat operations," repeated Zoltar, his scales shifting to a darker hue. "Even after sustaining damage that would completely destroy any vessel in the Alliance fleet." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Reyes tried to read the alien faces but couldn't tell if they were impressed or horrified. "Commander Reyes," Zoltar finally said, his voice formal again, "we must speak with your planetary leadership immediately. This inspection has revealed matters of grave concern." 24 hours later, Reyes sat in Earth's unified command center alongside military leaders and political representatives. The enormous holographic display showed comparisons between human warships and standard Alliance vessels. The differences were striking. Where Alliance ships had elegant, minimalist designs with thin hulls, human vessels were wrapped in layers of armor. Where Alliance ships carried defensive shields and limited weapons, human warships bristled with guns, missiles, and bomb bays. The human ships looked primitive by comparison, but undeniably more lethal. "Your vessels," Admiral Zoltar stated, his scales a serious deep blue, "are what we would classify as extinction-level weapons. They violate 23 different Alliance warfare conventions." President Chen leaned forward. "Admiral Zoltar, we designed our ships for defense. Space is dangerous." "Indeed," interrupted Zoltar. "But the Alliance has maintained peace for over 3,000 years through strict limitations on military technology." He gestured to the holographic display. "Your ships could destroy an entire Alliance battle group without sustaining critical damage." A murmur ran through the human leadership. Rice felt a chill run down her spine. She had always been proud of human engineering, of the Indomitable's ability to take punishment and keep fighting. Now she saw it through alien eyes, as something terrifying. "What are you suggesting?" asked Admiral Hassan. "That we dismantle our fleet." "The Alliance Council is discussing that very question," Zoltar replied. "Some members believe humanity is too dangerous to join our community. Others see potential in your unique approach to survival." President Chen stood up, her expression firm. "We've spent centuries alone in the void, Admiral. We built these ships because we had to prepare for the worst. I will not leave Earth defenseless." Zoltar's many-faceted eyes studied her for a long moment. "Then we have reached an impasse," he said quietly. "The Alliance cannot admit a species whose military capabilities could destabilize the peace we have maintained for millennia." 3 days later, after intense diplomatic negotiations, the Galactic Alliance issued its formal declaration. Human warships were banned from all Alliance territories. Any vessel that failed to comply would be considered a hostile act against the entire Alliance. The news hit humanity like a shockwave. After centuries of dreaming about the stars, they were being told they couldn't join the galactic community unless they abandoned the very ships that had enabled their survival. Commander Reyes stood in her quarters aboard the Indomitable, reading the declaration for the 10th time. The ship had been ordered back to Earth space, along with all other human vessels operating beyond the solar system. "Permission to enter, Commander." Lieutenant Commander Jackson stood at her door. "Granted," Reyes replied, setting down the tablet. "What's the crew's mood?" "Frustrated, angry, confused." Jackson sat down across from her. "We've spent our entire careers preparing to defend Earth. Now we're being told our ships are too dangerous to exist in civilized space." Reyes nodded slowly. "Have you seen the technical comparison? Their defensive systems are impressive. Their shield technology is far beyond ours. But their vessels have almost no redundancy. One good hit would collapse their systems. They've had peace for so long they've forgotten how to fight," Jackson observed. "Or perhaps they've evolved beyond the need," Reyes countered. "Their ships are designed for scientific exploration and diplomatic missions, not combat. When they look at our vessels, they see planet killers, ships designed to keep fighting even after taking massive damage." Jackson was quiet for a moment. "So what happens now?" Reyes looked out the viewport at the stars, suddenly feeling the weight of the distance between Earth and the broader galactic community. "I don't know, but I have a feeling this isn't over." In the unified command center on Earth, President Chen faced the assembled military leadership. "The Alliance has made its position clear," she said. "Human warships are prohibited from entering Alliance space, but they've offered us an alternative." Admiral Hassan leaned forward. "What kind of alternative?" "They're willing to share their technology, FTL communications, medical advancements, agricultural techniques, in exchange for our agreement to modify our fleet. They've provided specifications for acceptable defensive capabilities." "And if we refuse?" asked General Rodriguez. President Chen's expression was grim. "Then we remain isolated. We can still trade with individual Alliance species, but we won't have access to their collective knowledge or protection. Protection from what? Scoffed Admiral Hassan. They've had peace for 3,000 years. What exactly are they protecting us from? President Chen looked at him steadily. That's the question, isn't it? What lies beyond the borders of Alliance space that made 32 different species band together in the first place? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For now, the President continued, we've negotiated a compromise. The majority of our fleet will remain in Earth space. We'll modify a small number of vessels to comply with Alliance regulations for diplomatic and trade missions. Commander Reyes received her new orders with mixed emotions. The Indomitable would remain in Earth space, serving as the flagship of humanity's defensive fleet. Meanwhile, a new class of vessels would be constructed according to Alliance specifications. Beautiful, elegant ships designed for peace rather than war. As she walked through the corridors of her powerful warship, Reyes wondered if Earth had made the right choice. The rest of the galaxy viewed human vessels as weapons of mass destruction, tools of war too dangerous to exist among civilized species. Yet as she watched the stars through the viewport, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a troubling question. In a universe of unknown dangers, was it better to be feared or welcomed? To be prepared for the worst or to trust in the peace that had lasted for millennia? Only time would tell if humanity's warships were a relic of a primitive past or a necessary evil in an unforgiving universe. The necessary evil. 6 months after the Galactic Alliance's ban on human warships, Commander Elena Reyes found herself in a classified briefing aboard the VSS Indomitable. The mood in the room was tense as Admiral Hassan addressed the assembled officers. 3 days ago, we received this transmission from the Galactic Alliance, he said, activating the holographic display. The image flickered to life, showing High Admiral Zoltar. His scales had lost their luster, and his eyes, once filled with confidence, now reflected exhaustion and worry. This is a priority communication for Earth leadership, Zoltar began. We are facing an unprecedented crisis. Multiple Alliance outposts in the Cygnus sector have gone dark. Our reconnaissance vessels report. The transmission became garbled for a moment before continuing. Unknown vessels of immense power. Standard Alliance defenses have proven ineffective. We require immediate consultation. The hologram flickered out, leaving the briefing room in silence. That was 4 days ago, Admiral Hassan continued. Since then, we've received scattered reports of entire systems going dark. The Alliance's elegant ships are being torn apart. Reyes leaned forward. Do we know what they're facing? Only fragments, Hassan replied, bringing up another holographic image. This one showed a blurry image of sleek, obsidian ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Alliance calls them the Void Collective. Apparently, they've encountered them before, centuries ago, but never in such numbers. Where did they come from? Asked Lieutenant Commander Jackson. Beyond the Alliance's borders, Hassan said grimly. From a region of space they call the Dark Expanse. The Alliance has been monitoring it for millennia, but they never expected an incursion of this magnitude. President Chen entered the room, her expression grave. 1 hour ago, we received a formal request from the Galactic Alliance Council. They're asking for our help. Reyes felt a surge of vindication mingled with concern. The same ships they banned 6 months ago. The same, the President confirmed. The Alliance's diplomatic vessels and scientific explorers are no match for these invaders. They've requested our military assistance. She paused. I've agreed, but with conditions. 3 days later, Commander Reyes stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it led a battle group of 7 human warships toward the edge of Alliance space. Beside her stood High Admiral Zoltar himself, who had arrived on Earth to personally request their intervention. Your ships are impressive up close, Zoltar admitted, watching the efficiency of the human crew. I understand now why your people were reluctant to modify them. Reyes kept her eyes on the tactical display. We built them this way for a reason, Admiral. Space is vast and unforgiving. And yet we maintained peace for 3 millennia without such weapons, Zoltar countered. Within your borders, Rice pointed out. What waited beyond was always the question, wasn't it? Zoltar's scales shifted to a subdued gray. We believed the threat was contained. The last void incursion was defeated 2,000 years ago. We've maintained watchposts at the borders of the expanse ever since. What exactly are we facing? Rice asked. Your reports have been vague. Zoltar's many-faceted eyes reflected the starlight. The Void Collective isn't a single species. They're amalgamations. They absorb technology, resources, even living beings. Everything becomes fuel for their expansion. A chill ran down Reyes's spine. And they've broken through your defenses. Our ships were designed for peace, Zoltar said quietly. When the watchposts fell, we had nothing that could stand against them. The tactical officer interrupted. Commander, we're approaching the Arcturus system. Alliance distress signals detected. Rice nodded. Battle stations. All ships, prepare for combat operations. The view screen showed the chaos unfolding in the Arcturus system. 3 elegant Alliance vessels were desperately maneuvering to avoid the attacks of 2 Obsidian ships. The Alliance vessels' shields flickered weakly as they tried to maintain formation. Those are Sylphid diplomatic cruisers, Zoltar said, his voice tight. They're not designed for combat. Communications, hail the Alliance vessels, Rice ordered. Tell them to withdraw. We'll engage the hostiles. As the Alliance ships retreated, the Void vessels turned their attention to the incoming human fleet. For the first time, Rice got a clear look at the enemy. The black ships were unlike anything she had ever seen. Their surfaces seemed to absorb light, and their shapes were constantly shifting, as if they weren't fully solid. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Rice commanded. Target the lead vessel. The human battle group moved with practiced precision, spreading out to create overlapping fields of fire. The VSS Indomitable led the charge, its massive weapons arrays powering up. The first exchange was fierce. The Void ships fired weapons that seemed to distort space itself, creating ripples that threatened to tear the human vessels apart. But the reinforced hulls of the human warships held. Direct hit on their lead vessel, reported the tactical officer. Minimal damage. They appear to be adapting to our weapons. Switch to kinetic bombardment, Rice ordered. Sometimes the simplest solution is best. The human ships unleashed a barrage of tungsten rods, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. The physical impact was devastating, tearing through the shifting surfaces of the Void ships. They're retreating, the tactical officer announced. Wait, they are regrouping. The 2 Void vessels merged together, their obsidian surfaces flowing like liquid to form a single, larger ship. The combined entity immediately launched a counterattack, its weapons now significantly more powerful. Evasive maneuvers, Rice shouted as the enhanced beam sliced through space toward them. The Indomitable shuddered as the beam grazed its port side. Damage reports flooded in, but the redundant systems kicked in immediately, keeping the ship fully operational. Their adaptive capabilities are extraordinary, Zoltar whispered, his scales paling further. This is why we couldn't stop them. Ray studied the tactical display, mind racing. They're adapting to our weapons, but that merger cost them mobility. She turned to the communications officer. Signal the fleet. I want coordinated strikes from multiple vectors. The human warships executed a complex maneuver, surrounding the Void vessel and attacking from all sides simultaneously. The massive enemy ship couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter all the different attack angles. It's working, Jackson reported. Their structural integrity is failing. The Void ship began to break apart, its obsidian surface fracturing under the relentless human assault. But instead of exploding, it split into dozens of smaller fragments, each attempting to escape. Don't let them get away, Rice ordered. If they reach another system, they'll adapt and come back stronger. The human fleet pursued the fragments, systematically destroying each one until nothing remained but debris floating in space. "Remarkable," Zoltar said, his voice a mixture of awe and discomfort. "In minutes, you accomplish what our forces couldn't do in days." Rice didn't have time to respond. The tactical officer called out urgently, "Commander, we're detecting multiple void signatures approaching from the direction of the dark expanse. At least 12 vessels, all larger than the one we just defeated." Admiral Hassan's voice came through the communication system. "Indomitable, this was just the advance guard. Our long-range sensors show massive fleet movements within the expanse. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion." For the next 3 weeks, the human battle group fought alongside hastily assembled Alliance forces at the edge of the dark expanse. The Void Collective sent wave after wave of ships, each more adapted than the last. But the human warships, with their redundant systems, overwhelming firepower, and armor designed to withstand anything the universe could throw at them, held the line. Commander Reyes stood in the Alliance High Council chamber, her uniform still bearing the scorch marks from the final battle. Around her, representatives from all 32 Alliance species sat in solemn assembly. "The invasion has been halted," High Admiral Zoltar announced to the Council. "Thanks to the intervention of the human fleet, the Void Collective has been pushed back beyond the Expanse border." Murmurs spread through the Council chamber. Many of the representatives looked at Reyes with new respect, though some still showed discomfort at her presence. "The cost has been high," Zoltar continued. 7 Alliance worlds were lost before the humans arrived. Millions of lives. His voice faltered briefly. But without their assistance, the losses would have been incalculable. The Meridian representative stood, her crystalline form catching the light. "We banned human warships because we feared their destructive potential. Yet that same potential saved us. How do we reconcile this paradox?" President Chen, who had arrived to participate in the formal negotiations, stepped forward. "Perhaps there is no paradox," she suggested. "Only a difference in perspective. What you saw as weapons of war, we saw as tools of survival. The same ship can be a threat or a shield, depending on who wields it and why." Admiral Hassan added, "Humanity built these ships because we've always prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. For centuries, we were alone in the dark, and we had to be ready for anything we might encounter." The Novan representative, a being of living plasma contained within an environmental suit, spoke next. "The Alliance has maintained peace for millennia by limiting military technology. This approach has served us well in our relations with each other, but perhaps we have become complacent about external threats." High Admiral Zoltar's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "Perhaps there is wisdom in both approaches. The Alliance's focus on peaceful coexistence has created a society where war is unthinkable between member species. But humanity's preparedness ensured there was someone ready when the unthinkable arrived." After days of deliberation, the Galactic Alliance Council announced a historic decision. The ban on human warships would be lifted. Instead, a new defensive coalition would be formed, with human vessels serving as the backbone of the Alliance's military response force. In return, humanity would gain full access to Alliance technology, culture, and support. The elegant Alliance vessels would continue their missions of exploration and diplomacy, while human warships stood guard at the borders, a vigilant shield against whatever might lurk in the darkness beyond. Commander Reyes stood at the viewport of the VSS Indomitable, watching as Alliance engineers worked alongside human technicians to integrate their advanced shield technology into the powerful human hull. "It's an interesting compromise," Lieutenant Commander Jackson observed, joining her at the window. "They share their elegant technology. We provide the muscle." "A necessary partnership," Reyes replied. "Their ships are beautiful, but beauty alone doesn't survive in the void." "And our ships are powerful," Jackson added, "but power without purpose is just destruction waiting to happen." Reyes nodded, watching as an Alliance diplomatic vessel docked alongside the Indomitable, elegant curves beside angular armor, a visual representation of their new alliance. "The galaxy is larger and more dangerous than either of us imagined," she said quietly. "Maybe we need both approaches to face what's out there." As the stars streamed past the viewport, Rise reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. 6 months ago, human warships had been deemed too dangerous to exist in civilized space. Now, those same ships were recognized as the shield that would protect civilization itself. In the vastness of space, humanity had found both its greatest challenge and its true purpose. The ships they had built in fear and isolation had become the guardians of a peace they had only just begun to understand. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the darkness between galaxies, other threats might be waiting. But now, when they came, they would find not just beauty or power alone, but both together. A galactic community united in all its diversity, ready to face whatever the universe might bring.